A story that combines Pokemon, Harry Potter, and Lord of the Rings. Well, that sounds interesting. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Adam Samuel, and today I'm reviewing The Novice by Taran Matharu. So The Novice is the first installment in the Summoner series, which is set in the world of the Hominum Empire. It draws, like I said, from things like Pokemon, Harry Potter, and Lord of the Rings, and as a reader, I love seeing the merging of those different worlds. I think the author found a way to make them work really well together, and I especially found it cool to learn that he actually first got started writing the series on Wattpad. As for my thoughts on the book, I enjoyed it overall, but at the same time, I did also have some issues with it, which we'll get into. And there will be no spoilers as usual, so don't worry about me giving anything away. The story follows Fletcher, a 15-year-old boy living in Pelt, which is a village that's pretty far removed from the rest of the Empire. Fletcher had been abandoned outside the gates as an infant and is living with Burden, a blacksmith who adopted him and who Fletcher now works for as an apprentice. Through a chain of events, Fletcher discovers that he has the ability to summon a demon, a sort of lizard-like creature that can breathe fire. Wait, why does that sound familiar? Anyway, he heads to Corsilium, the capital of the Empire, where he ends up joining Vocan's academy, basically Hogwarts. There, summoners are trained to master their abilities so they can be commanders in the Empire's army, which is currently locked in a war with the Orcs. So right off the bat, the story seems like it's going to follow tropes similar to other classic books. And while it kinda does for the most part, there's still a lot of new and fun ideas here that the author explores. The book never felt predictable to me, and while the ending packed a punch, it did also feel pretty abrupt. Like there should have been another chapter or two there, just to leave things a bit more resolved. But first, I want to talk about the things I liked about the book, starting with Fletcher. As a character, he was easy to get invested in. He made decisions that made sense, but he also had his flaws that made him feel real. Other character highlights for me were Othello the dwarf and Silva the elf. Other than those three though, and this is where I'm going to start getting to my criticisms, many of the characters did unfortunately come across feeling like copy and pasted versions of characters from other books, specifically from the Harry Potter series. Tarquin, a classmate of Fletcher's who comes from a noble family, is basically Draco Malfoy, even down to the father and power references, and the two teachers, Inquisitor Rook and Captain Lovett, are basically Professor Snape and Professor McGonagall. You can tell that the book is leaning into the Harry Potter inspirations, and it just got a little too heavy-handed at times for me. It made the book weaker because it felt like it was veering into fanfiction territory more than being its own thing. I still like these characters, I just wish they had been a little more unique. I enjoyed them because they were meant to be Draco, Professor Snape, and Professor McGonagall, not because they were their own thing. There was actually one point where I said to myself, I wonder if we're going to get a Snape character, and then bam, he showed up like a chapter later. But the biggest issue I had was the pacing because it almost ruined the book for me. Pages upon pages would be a slog of exposition, so much so that I almost gave up reading it midway. There's a fine line between fleshing out a fictional world and overcooking it, and this story definitely slipped into the latter for me at times. I would be waiting for things to happen, and the payoff was good when they finally did, but it was almost not worth the slog of getting through so many chapters of exposition to get there. I always felt like the best exposition is when your brain can be tricked into not thinking it's being given to you. Here, it was painfully obvious every time information was being given. You can tell that the author is trying to set things up for future books, but it was to the detriment of the story and made it feel really bloated. What the story really needed was an editor to cut those bits out and either save them for later or find a better way to work them into the story. I still overall had fun, but it took the book down a serious notch for me. But that all said, my grade for The Novice is going to be 3 out of 5 stars. It was a good read, but was weighed down with all its exposition and leaning too heavily on its influences. If those things had been corrected, this would have been such a better read. Still, I'm invested enough in the story that I'll definitely be checking out the sequels in the future. I think there are 2 more of them. Anyway, thank you so much for checking out this review. If you like this video and want to see more, be sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and let me know down in the comments if you've checked out the Summoner series, or if there's another story you really enjoyed that came from Wattpad. Whatever your thoughts, leave them below. That's all for me for today. I'll see you next time in another video. Until then, bye.